Hey everyone, welcome to the Stubborn Mule 2024 pre-race video. My name's Paula Waite. I'm one of the race directors for the Stubborn Mule this year. Co-race director Julie is out setting some of the last points on the course. It's raining up here right now, and I always say if we have a challenging weather day setting the course, then race day usually turns out beautiful. So I hope that that's true for all of you this year. Thanks to each of you for racing Stubborn Mule. For many of you, this is your first race, and boy, do we have an amazing day planned for you. It's a fantastic course set up in a gorgeous area, and I hope you love it. I want to be sure to thank some folks before I jump into the race details that I know you're all anxious to hear about, so let's get started. So first, we have about 20 volunteers who've given up their weekend and even some vacation days to be here for you. So please be sure to give them a heartfelt thank you when you see them. Even if your day isn't going as planned, give them a smile. Might make you feel better too. And they're really the only way that this event happens. Some of these folks have been with me for 15 years. It's a long time. And some volunteers are brand new this year. So lots of great folks out there. And again, be sure to give them a thank you. Next, I want to thank the land managers that we worked with over the last year, a little more than a year on this event. The Town of Cable, the American Birkebeiner Ski Foundation, the Schwamigan Area Mountain Bike Association, Bayfield County, and the National Forest Service. So they've all been great to work with and put in a lot of time. So thanks to all of them. And then last but not least, our sponsors and our partners. So MyTopo does such a great job with printing our large format maps. They've been doing this with us for 15 years and they do a great job. They also provide software to us for creating those maps and a nice discount on the printing. So big kudos and shout out to them. The Women of AR, USARA, Adventure Racing World Series, Wisconsin Adventure Racing Series, Badger Orienteering for renting us some of their e-punch equipment, and to the folks who got the equipment up here and got it cleaned up from the previous race and turned around so we could use it. Appreciate that time, especially to Medicus Rex and Jeff for driving that up here and meeting me in Eau Claire to make sure we had things on time. Aiden Gear, New Moon Bike and Ski, Squirt, Zanfell, Home Base at Telemark Village and Startline, and Velo Cafe. So lots of great support, both with more national and international companies and also local companies. So thanks to all of those folks. All right, so let's get into some details for tomorrow. First thing, be sure to read through all of the updates and the related documents and watch the videos that are posted on our website. Pay special attention to those race rules. There will be a copy of the rules in your instructions, but your prep is going to go a lot faster if you've read them ahead of time and you're familiar with those. A couple key rules that I want to emphasize. Remember that this is a team sport. Your team needs to stay together throughout the race. So team members must travel the course together, with team members being close enough to see and communicate verbally with each other at all times. The exception to that, of course, is when you're in transition area, right? So I realize somebody might be in the restroom or somebody's checking in, and so you might split up a little bit there. But aside from the TAs, when you're out on the course, make sure you're staying together. All team members must travel within 5 meters of each checkpoint and be within 5 meters at the time that the CP is punched, unless otherwise instructed by us. So if we have something different that we're doing, we'll let you know. But in general, assume that that's true for every single CP. That means if you're tired, you don't hang out on the trail and send somebody to go punch the CP. You all go. So keep things fair, race with integrity, and that's what's best for everybody in terms of the sport. So I appreciate you all taking that rule very seriously. Last reminder, and there's a lot of rules in there, so again, make sure you take a look through all of them, but the last thing I want to remind you of is making sure that you check in with the volunteer at each TA. So as you arrive at a TA, make sure you're letting the volunteer there know, hey, we're racing the 5-hour, Team 23, we're checking in. There are penalties for not checking in. We want to make sure that we know where you all are, so make sure that the volunteer hears you and that they're writing down that information. So thanks. Okay, on to the more fun stuff. I don't like reading through all the rules, but we've got to make sure everyone is familiar with them. You must finish under your own power. So unlike some events, we don't have a sag wagon out there. So if you get tired out, you still need to finish by yourself under your own power. You'd be surprised at what a little rest and some food can do. So if you're feeling worn down, give your team a little bit of time if you need it to kind of re-energize. And it's amazing how fast you'll come back. So don't pull the plug and be like, hey, we're out. Keep going. You all can do this, and you'll, again, be amazed that you're not done sometimes when you think that you're done. Remember that we are sharing the roads, the trails, and the lands with the public. This is not a closed course. We don't have sole use of any of the properties that we'll be on or any of the trails. So when you're riding on the roads, riding on the trails, be aware that the public will be out there. Particularly when you're on the roads, please stay single file. If you need to stop and consult your map, please get well off the road to do that. So I know it's really easy to be like, hey, everybody, let's just stop and take a look at the map, and you kind of got this blob of folks on the road. Make sure that you get off the road. I got some calls last year from some of the local folks who are like, boy, you got teams all over the road and it's really dangerous. So I really want to make sure we avoid that this year. Okay, so let's talk about tomorrow morning. When you arrive, my recommendation is that you are race ready. You have your bottles full, your hydration bladders are full, your tires are pumped up, you're set to go. 5-hour racers, you should have received remote gear drop details from me in an email yesterday. If you did not receive that, please email me. Your gear drop opens at 9. The first wave of you are checking in at 10 a.m., so I expect many of you will want to do that gear drop right close to 9 a.m. For those of you who are checking in at 11, you can do that gear drop closer to 10, but it's open whenever you want to do that. However, you won't get your materials until your actual check-in time. So, if you're an 11 o'clock check-in and you dropped off your bike at 9 a.m., you're going to have a bit of a wait at HQ until you get your race material, so just be aware of that. 12-hour and 30-hour racers, there will be a paddle gear drop at HQ. So you want to drop that before your start for transport. After the paddle, we'll bring that stuff back with you. And 5 hours also will be bringing your paddle gear back as well. So make sure you've got that stuff in a bag and it's contained so that we can easily transport it. 12-hour and 30-hour folks, if after you look at your maps and the course flow, if you want to add some extra things into your paddle bag, that's okay. Like you want to put some extra food in there, no problem with that. But please make sure it's all in one bag so that we can keep that together, and make sure your things are labeled. So all racers, make sure the bikes have a number written on the top tube just with a piece of tape. And any equipment that you want to make sure that you get back. It helps us in the transition areas to make sure that we don't transport somebody's gear that isn't ready to be transported. And it also helps us get things back to you if you leave them behind. We'd like to do team photos at check-in. So if you arrive before that map release time, that's the check-in time that was published. Get your picture taken, and then feel free to set up at a table in HQ where you want to do your planning. Once it's time for the maps to be given and the instructions, we'll let you know, and then you can grab your goodie bag, race packet, and your maps. So what's in the goodie bag? Shirts and some really nice swag from Squirt and Zanfell. For some of you, if you registered after June 1st, you may not have a shirt in your bag. We couldn't guarantee shirts because we had to have the order in before then. I did order some extras, so there'll be a pile of those and you can grab a shirt off of that pile. For those of you who ordered shirts and have a shirt, or have shirts in your bag because you registered before June 1st, if you need to exchange for another size, please feel free to do that as well. You don't have to do it before the race. Those shirts will be out after the race too. When you take the shirts out of the bag, it's hard sometimes to tell as you take them out whether it's a men's cut or a women's cut. If you hold them up together, then it becomes a little bit more obvious which is which. There's nothing on the tag that indicates they're different, so just something to be aware of there. Be careful when you grab your race packets. The race packets are in a manila envelope that has not been sealed, just in case we need to stick extra things in there at the last minute. There are loose pins in there for your bib numbers and your finger stick, and that stuff can fall out of there pretty easily, so just be careful as you grab that and take off with it. When you receive your maps, make sure that you have everything. So on the third page of the instructions is a list of what you should have received. So make sure you've got the right number of maps and the ones that are labeled. I've basically numbered the maps like 1 through whatever, 5 or 7, or depending on your race. Next thing to do is read those instructions carefully. This sport is not one in which there's somebody out there telling you which way to go and leading you through the course. You need to read all of the information carefully, make sure that you understand it so that you know the flow of the day and what things you need to do and what things you can maybe skip. After that, I recommend going through the clue sheet to really understand the race flow. Make sure that you understand what the CPs are, whether it's a flag that you're looking for or a clue, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Be sure to also read what's required in order to be a ranked team. So for 12-hour and 30 hours, you need to get at least one checkpoint in each discipline. So a paddle point, a bike point, and a trek point. Doesn't matter which leg you do that on. So if there are 2 paddle sections, you can get that paddle point, that mandatory paddle point on any of them. Okay, so there's not a CP that's specified like you must get this one, you just need to get one. For 5 hours, to be full course or to be ranked, you need to get a bike point and a trek point. So we're not requiring the paddle for all of you. You can skip that if you want to. It's a great paddle. I wouldn't encourage you to skip it, but that's an option. After that, I recommend going through your maps and finding each CP so that you know where they are. Highlight it. Bring a highlighter and highlight those CPs. If you can't find something on your map, ask. So I'll be floating around. Julie should be floating around as well so we can help you, and there'll be some other volunteers too to help you locate that stuff if there's something you can't find. The clue sheet should be helpful in terms of finding the CPs. So there's several columns on that clue sheet. There's a mode column that explains or designates what mode of travel you'll be using to get to that point. So whether it's a paddle or a trek or the bike. And then there's a column for the CP number, followed by a clue. So saying maybe the CP is on a hilltop. Or it could be telling you a location where you're going to be answering a question. So it's possible that rather than having a orienteering flag hanging there, there will be somewhere that you need to find and answer a question. Maybe it's a historical marker sign or something like that. If that's the case, then there will be a question that you'll answer, and that question is also on that clue sheet. So be careful and make sure you know what you're looking for. Am I looking for a flag, or I'm looking for like a thing out in the world? There's also a column on that clue sheet called map. And in that map column, it has a number for which map number has the CP on it. Which map is going to be useful for that section. Sometimes a point is plotted onto 2 maps, and you can pick and choose which of those maps is going to make the most sense for you to use in order to find that CP. So if you're having trouble finding something, make sure you're looking at the proper map to find that CP. Let's see. So for the questions that aren't a flag, but are instead an orienteering marker, but instead a question, you're going to be answering a question, make sure that you have a good writing utensil and a backup so that you can write down those answers. I will have a punch card for you to write those answers on and give to us, but you need to make sure you have a good writing utensil for that. The paper for those, the paper is either Tyvek or it's more of a plasticky substrate. So you want to just make sure in the morning that your writing utensil works well on that. You'll also want to make sure that you write your team number on that punch card. They are not numbered. So kind of a to-do for all of you tomorrow. After you've identified all the CPs on your maps, then start planning your day. Keeping in mind that the winner is the team that gets the most CPs in the least amount of time. Remember that if you are late, you're going to lose 1 CP per minute. So you don't want to be late, and you want to make sure you're planning your day. So having an idea of what your team's biking pace is, what your trekking pace is, what your paddle pace is a good way to help you kind of think about that and think about what are you actually going to be able to do in the day, in the time allotted. Related to that, there is a lot of course out there. And it's not expected that most teams will be able to clear the course, especially if this is your first race. Pick and choose what you want to do and how you want to spend your day and do that stuff. And don't feel disappointed if you don't get all of the controls, because I'm not expecting you to, and there will probably be very few teams in the 5 and the 12 hour that clear. Clear meaning getting all of the points. In fact, for the 12 hours, I think Anthony with Elkbones said this a few years ago, and then he was proven wrong, but I'm going to say it as well, and we'll see what happens. I think the 12-hour course is unclearable. There is a lot out there. There's a lot of really great stuff, and so I had a hard time like slimming that down to really limit it. So I've kind of left it out there. I'm like, there's more there, and you can pick and choose what you get and what makes sense for your team. Somebody might surprise me, but again, I think there might be a little bit too much out there. Really take a look at those maps. So I've added some trails and roads that were not on the base map, but the base map roads, some of them are pretty faint. And so don't get sucked into only looking at the added trails, which tend to pop a little bit more on those. There are a lot of trails in the current base map or roads that are a faint gray. So really take a look at that. Maybe use your magnifying glass on your compass to look around areas to make sure that you aren't missing something. Related to looking at the maps, be sure to look at the map key. So there is a key or a legend on each of the maps, and it is different on some of the maps. So some of the maps, like for example, near the start, the red trail there is either the Old Cordy Trail or the Berkey Ski Trail. In other areas, a red trail on your map is going to be something different. And so just keep that in mind, that key changes over the maps. There's only so many colors I can use, so I had to reuse a few. Also review the map scale. That is going to be different depending on the map as well. So make sure that you understand the scale of what you're looking at. Plan to use all the maps. So there's quite a lot in there. If I gave it to you, there's probably a good reason that I gave it to you. So make sure that you're making use of all of those. Protect those maps and their clue sheets too. So use a good map case. Don't let stuff swim around in the bottom of your boat, no matter how good your case is. That thing is probably going to let a little bit of water in. I don't want to see anybody's maps destroyed. We don't have enough copies to give everybody fresh copies after the paddle. So, on the paddle, just take what you need and make sure that the other stuff is maybe left on shore with the rest of your gear in a place that's protected as well. All right, a few things about transition areas. All of the TAs have water and porta potties, so keep that in mind. I also have water noted, some additional potable water sources noted on the maps. Those are in the form of like a blue pump, so you can see where those are, and you might be passing by some water that you can fill up while you're out on the course. At the TAs, I want you to remember there's multiple races happening. So when you're communicating with a volunteer, it's really helpful to let them know which race you're doing before you kind of shout out your team name. So, we're 5 hours and we're hoping to have kind of a greeter volunteer at each of the TAs to direct you as to where to head, because we've got potentially, almost 200 of you, and we want to make sure we get everybody to where they need to be. So please be patient as you're coming into those transition areas, and communicate clearly with the volunteer about which race you're doing and what your team number is. You may visit some TAs multiple times. Each time you come back to that TA, make sure that you're checking in with the volunteer. So there is a time penalty for not doing so. So make sure they heard you and they've written down that, yep, team 28, they're here, they were here at this time. If you are unsure if you should be punching a CP at a TA, take a careful look at your clue sheet. So the volunteers have a lot going on and they aren't necessarily able to keep track of when you need to punch and what you need to punch. That information is in your clue sheet, so make sure that you do that. In general, it is the first time you arrive at a TA. So let's say you come into TA 3 on your bike, and then you go out and you do a trek and you come back. It's that first time when you arrived at that TA on your bike that you'll punch. After you come back from the trek, you wouldn't punch again. So that hopefully will help you all remember. It's pretty clear in the instructions, but just want to make sure that nobody misses that, because it's an easy point, punching at the TA, that counts in your score. If you're planning to skip a section, and so with the open optional part of this course, I suspect that some of you may choose to bypass a section. Totally fine. Just please be sure to let the volunteer know if you're doing that. A couple of reasons. One, we want to make sure we know where you are and that you're safe. And second, we want to make sure that we open up that next TA that you're potentially heading to, so that it's open when you get there and you don't get there and there's no one there. So it'll help us manage the course to make sure things are open and ready for you. Let's see, single track. So the Berkey area has some awesome new single track. Canva has some great single track. It's probably no surprise that we're planning to have you ride that. There's a lot of rain today. We've had a lot of rain in the past few weeks, And so it's possible that that single track is going to be closed. We will keep you posted on what the conditions are. If it's closed, it's possible some of the trails will be closed and others won't be. So I will let you know in the pre-race briefing and then throughout the day what's going on there, because I realize you may be adjusting your day based on whether that single track is open or not. It might mean that we end up also moving single track to be much later in the race than originally planned. So I will let you know that as soon as I know. And that call might not be able to be made until shortly before the start. So please be patient with me. I'm trying to make sure that I do the best thing for all of you, also the best thing for the trails. So I'm going to make the decision there along with the property owners to make sure that we make a good decision there. So just we'll share what we know when we know it. It's super cool single track, so I'm really hoping that we get to use it. All right, so at the finish line, make sure you punch the finish control, turn in your finger stick, and then proceed to the finisher awards table. Each person should take one finisher award. We have mini orienteering flags and some super cool bracelets from Tinkering Cyclist to celebrate your finish. There'll be cold beverages. We have soft drinks, plenty of beer. That will be available right when you finish. And then Strong Arm Sally is playing starting at 5:30. Dinner will be about 6 o'clock. Might be ready a little bit early, but plan on 6 o'clock. And we'll serve that up until 8-ish, probably a little longer if we need to, because I know some of you 12 hours might be coming in and want to be able to get changed and have time. We'll do a door prize drawing in that time frame, and my plan is to also do at least top 3 in each category and just announce those. All results that we announce tomorrow will be preliminary. We need to go through and make sure that we've got all of our ducks in a row, but I'll do my best to get a good results out as soon as I can. We'll also have those posted hopefully as quickly as possible live on the website. So you'll see that link out there either later today or tomorrow when you finish. Sunday for 30-hour racers, lunch will start at noonish. We can move that up a little bit depending on how things are going. Our very own Jess Barrage is doing the catering, so we've got a lot of flexibility there since she's doing this kind of on the fly for us, which is awesome. All right, that's it. Safe travels to all of you, and we will see you in the morning.